Thank you very much for staying tuned to Development Focus with JIDE OJO on ITV. We are about starting the second and concluding segment of this program. I've dragged a whole chief executive officer of a TV station to come and talk to us about communication for development. What is it all about? You know, when I had a chat with him over the weekend, and he was saying something about communication for development. I said, I don't understand, but come and tell the public exactly what you mean by that. And I have a veteran. He's a journalist, a PR specialist, a communication expert. He's the CEO of Acquire TV. Odo Diego Okanyo. How are you?
I'm fine, sir. Pleased to meet you again
on the show. So, Odo,
yes,
communication for the. Tell us a bit about yourself. You put in some 23 years into the media communication field. How has it been? Why the choice of this area?
It's the desire to empower people.
Okay.
So in communication, so I can communicate to continue selling something to you using your ignorance and just taking money from you. So imagine if you're a soft drink manufacturer. Even if the soft drink is not healthy, I will keep selling it to you as the best product, right? But development communication says no. We want to empower you with knowledge and with the right products so that you make the right choices. You know, so communication for development is using communication tools to empower people to identify their own problems and also provide the solutions to this problem.
Okay, before we go to that, the question is your choice of
yes, I was going to come to
field.
that.
What lured you? What motivated you to be in the communications field?
So I grew up in a family where we were always, my dad was always involved in culture, history, you know, understanding people's work, and we used to read a book in my house, Where There Is No Doctor.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen that book. My sister has it.
So
There's no doctor.
It was a book that says even when there is no doctor, you are able to handle this yourself. So I grew up in that background where my father always fed us an encyclopedia. I read about all the religions in the world, Confucianism, Buddhism. So we grew up knowing that as a human being, if we empower human beings, that they are able to solve their own problems. That's how I grew up. So everything I was studying, therefore, physics, mathematics, and all of that, I was always thinking of, okay, so how do I take this difficult subject and make it very accessible to people? So when I went into the university, you know, again, I was that child that studied everything. So even, my first degree is in pharmacy. But
wow, so that pharmacy, this is new. So you read pharmacy?
I read, I'm not going to university. Yes.
I know people from Berlin, they don't go to jobs, they will go to ABU. So you chose ABU is far.
So even while studying pharmacy, I was always thinking of how to empower people. So in fact, my final year project was done in the area of pharmacognosy. Pharmacognosy
that's the area of specialist of Professor Morris Wu and I think Dora.
No, Dora wasn't pharmacognosy, but I think she was pharmacology. She's a professor of pharmacology.
Oh, okay. Let's not go into the difference between pharmacognosy and pharmacology.
But the beauty is that pharmacognosy is the development of drugs from plant and animal sources, from natural sources. So that I was already inclined towards. But even in the university, I was a writer. I was one of the leaders of the Creative Writers Club in ABU. So even though I was a pharmacy student, I was always there in the Faculty of Arts, trying to hone my talents in creative writing. So it was easier for me to understand that if you empowered people, that their lives will always be better. So it made a lot of sense. When I came into journalism in around 99, you know, active journalism I was with the Daily Trust and all of that. When I came into that, it was easy for me to think of covering developmental issues. So in Kaduna then, where we were based, I did stories on the textile industries, for example, and the ink, the textile ink, they were spilling into Kakuri area, into the water, and that was leading to antibiotic resistance. So it made people were getting treated for infections, and the treatments were not going. Because
the infections were not going.
They were not going. The infections were not going because the sulfur that was in the ink from the textile industries, the bacteria were getting used to it and resistant, and those things were happening. So I got to know that if you're able to empower these people, empower the policymakers also to understand the effects of their action, then they are going to treat it differently. People are going to come up with solutions.
So invariably you are like Cyprian Equus of our time. You studied pharmacy, but you ended up in creative.
Yeah.
You are also a poet, poet. All of that, is it because of your early exposure to reading and all of that that you became a poet, a creative writer, a journalist, a PR expert, a communicator?
Yeah.
So what did you do in second degree? Because
I'm doing a master's in development communication, fortunately.
Okay, that's good. So you are now pigeonholing yourself into development communication.
Yeah.
So now let's calibrate this development communication. Bring it down to the level of ordinary citizen watching us.
Yes.
I don't want us to make it abstract or esoteric. So what is basically development communication? Okay. And how does it affect our daily lives as individuals?
It's the use of communication tools, that is for us to be able to communicate, to identify problems together. There's no experts. And then you in the community working together with the development communicator, you find solutions together. We understand that that is more sustainable, because if people are
that looks more like a peace building mechanism.
A peace building, it's also used in peace building. And that's the beauty in development communication, is that it applies to all fields. In health, in peace building, in gender, in all of it. So it's not communication that is used to exploit the people. So if a big corporation, you use communication to do maybe CSR, corporate social responsibility, you just want to make the people support you, even though you are exploiting them. But for development communication, we're using communication to empower people. You teach them what you model for them what has worked elsewhere, what is good for them, and what they need to change.
Are you sure you will not be out of business if you go? Because you cited an example of a soft drink manufacturing plant.
Yes.
It may not be good for the health of the citizen.
Yes.
But they glamorize it.
Yes.
And tell you that when you are thirsty, just take a chilly bottle of this, and you have, you'll be refreshed.
Yes.
But it's causing people diabetes, it's causing people obesity, it's unhealthy in the sense of it.
Exactly.
Or, a tobacco manufacturing company that is, instead of saying tobacco smoking could cut down your life, they put it in a very tiny way that you hardly see it unless with a magnifying glass.
Yes.
And people are made to feel good taking this tobacco, this cigarettes, this. So how do you, if you go into development communication as you have tried to educate us, do you think people like you will not be out of business? Will you be a brand ambassador and all of that? If you are telling people what those
will empower them, right?
Empower them.
So this is the interesting part of development communication. We believe that people are equal, if I would say. There's an empowerment thing that says we should not exploit people. So, but you know that 7 billion people in this world, there is a lot of poverty. There's a lot of work to be done in terms of development communication to bring people, to improve the quality of life of people. And there's need for consistent awareness creation, engagements with people so that the right things keep being done. So you can't run out of business. However, if you are interested in becoming the billionaire at the expense of other people's lives, then you'll be thinking of running out of business. I am able to fend for myself, but I'm not exploiting hundreds of millions of people. And that's the important thing for us in development communication. I've worked in PR, I've worked in advertising, and I've seen that at the core of these other ones is that, well, if you are ignorant and I can get money from you, it's okay, right? But in development communication, if I see that there is ignorance, at the core of what I do is to ensure that I engage in capacity building. There are tools for us like participatory learning and action. How do people work together to learn from that process? And then if I, the expert, am not in there, they are able to do what is right, and improve their own quality of life. So you're not going to run out of business. It's just that you move around a lot. Because you move from one problem.
Let's apply this development communication to elections.
Yes.
That's the season we are now, politics and elections.
Yes.
What will you be telling people differently, empowering them with communication skills?
Yes.
In the area of politics and elections, which is the season we are now?
Okay, again, at the core of development communication is that we work in a long-term way. So we would have, if I were to be involved in the election process, I'll be working, let's say, from the last 2019 election at the minimum. What were the issues? Let's collectively identify where area demarcations not done well, for example. Do we need to deal with that? Are there groups that are marginalized? Can we proactively look at what happened yesterday, where the women's issues were all thrown out in the month of March, that we have a women's, this is the Women's Month, March 8th.
International Women's
Month. And the beauty, which is part of the success of development communication, is that women were the ones who rose up and held their meeting yesterday to review the situation. But what we'll be doing differently, therefore, in the election is engaging these groups and then identifying the problems and saying, okay, how do we deal with each of these problems? How do we bring everybody to the table, or do we need to meet in different tables before we bring our issues together? What I'll be doing differently in elections is that there's a need to critically engage the young people. This is a country that about 70% is still under 35 years. That's a massive, when you say 35%, it sounds abstract, but 211 million people, if you do 35%, that's 140 something million, or 150 million.
If you do 70% of that?
Yeah, 70% of that is about 150 million people. If you have 150 million people, it's still bigger than the population of Ethiopia, the population of Egypt, a whole country. Why are we playing with this in terms of getting young people to lead certain positions? Even the leadership of the election management bodies are still people who are in their 50s, 60s.
In fact, constitutionally speaking, it's not supposed to be so, because the age limit for INEC chairman has been brought down from initial 40 to 35, and resident electoral commissioners 30. But again, they are not the appointing authority. It's the government.
And the government is made up of people who are not very young. And
so you to use development communication for election now, you'll be doing what?
A lot of community engagements, identifying the different communities.
Youth to participate in the electoral process.
Youth one, women, physically challenged persons with disabilities. there are different groups that, if you just look at them, they have been left out or have felt marginalized and have not participated well enough. I would start engaging with those groups right away.
Okay. Yeah. Now let's bring development communication to fighting corruption.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Because that's like an albatross that is almost consuming us.
Yes.
The fight against corruption, what in your own view, how do you have that skill set that we can use to deal with, to deal a fatal blow on corruption? How do you use development communication as a tool to fighting corruption?
There is a big gap in advocacy. That is the actions that need to be taken at the top level to send a clear message. Because now, corruption seems glamorized in our society. And no matter the kinds of communication you are engaged in, if people who engage in corrupt practices are being glamorized, are being given chieftaincy titles, they are being promoted to higher offices, even in government, then very little will development communication achieve, because we know the limits of development communication in the work we do. There is need for society to take drastic action at the level of government and at the level of the different institutions. If churches and mosques, for example, are calling out those who are donating big monies, right, and saying, no, we can't take this because your salary from where you work cannot support this kind of donation. If at those advocacy level, at that higher level, we are doing things in society, if government is refusing to promote people, if the recruitment of judicial officers, for example, a lawyer that you know has been bribing a lot of people, right, that same lawyer, you say, because the person has spent a number of years in the bar, at the bar, the person now should move to the bench. If he becomes a judge, he's going to do a lot more. So if there are sanctions at the top level institutions, you know, social sanctions, you know, in development communication, we talk about social norms, change, you know, communication for social change. And one of the things we do is issues of social norms. If people are being rewarded for doing the wrong thing, no matter the amount of talk, there will be dissonance. You know, people can't see the point you are making. So in development communication, applying it to anti-corruption, at the key, the gap I see right now is advocacy for the people at the top in different institutions to apply sanctions. So
it's been suggested, I don't know whether this fits into what you are trying to tell us.
Yeah.
It's been suggested that part of the way to deal with corruption in Nigeria is through naming and shaming. Also, like you talked about bringing the religious or worship centers into the whole equation. If people are excommunicated, for instance, I don't know if you are a Catholic, they are denied Holy Communion. If you are an educational institution, you confer somebody with an honorary PhD or honorary degree, and is convicted for corruption, and you
withdraw it.
You officially withdraw that PhD from him, and such similar, you know, sanctions, moral, you know, not necessarily something that has to do with the court, but naming, shaming, you know, dealing with such issues in such a subtle way that we were likely going to achieve better results than if we just go the legalistic way of dragging people to court and getting them convicted.
Yes.
Do you agree with that?
I do agree perfectly. I'm even a real advocate of that, because I believe that the social sanctions,
like chieftaincy title,
you withdraw it.
You withdraw the title.
But we have situations where chiefs who were convicted, people then wore ashwebi
to go and welcome them after they finish having their jail time. You go. That's reinforcing.
So you are reinforcing
and then corruption.
That's why for us in development communication, we say it's what we are seeing that are repetitive in society is because of what we can tolerate. It's because society really not only tolerates but even encourages some of these things to happen. If not, the changes would have happened drastically. Whether you come to banditry, whether you come to all the different things that are happening, you see that we know the institutions that are supposed to battle this stuff. We know people who are being paid to do these things. If they are not doing their work, how have we risen up to say, please step down from your office?
Can we bring development communication to fighting this fuel scarcity? Because it's affecting me. I don't know how best we can communicate to our president, who is the Minister of Petroleum Resources, to please do the needful. Is there any window of development communication dealing with that?
Yes, insofar as we identify issues and the people do not rise up against it. I say our leaders are not foolish. We have the best of leaders who read the moods of the people. They will never insult any religious leader. Look at all of them, no matter how crazy, no matter how insensitive they are. That tells you that they know that you can live with fuel scarcity or high prices of fuel. They know that you can live with banditry insofar as you are not the one being killed. They know that you tolerate all of these things, so they can remain. The day we rise up and say, we will not tolerate this anymore, they will leave.
Okay. Development communication. You have had the abstract and the application of it to our daily living. We have applied it to anti-corruption, we have applied it to elections, we have applied it to governance issue, even to security challenge. So it is very important. Next time we bring OJO, he will be giving us illustrations, practical illustrations of where this has worked in other climes and what they have done differently to overcome their national challenge. Thank you very much, OJO, Diego Okenyudu.
Thank you very much,
CEO of Acquire TV, a poet laureate, creative writer, journalist, PR specialist, communication expert, everything.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Have a great day and best wishes in the month of March.
Thank
you.
So
that will be the size of our package on development focus with JIDE OJO on ITV this morning. Stay tuned and hope to see you next Wednesday.